Don't you love it when a take ages well? We'll talk about it in a sec. David Ornstein, I'm just going to go straight into the tweet. And it's also important to remember that this is still very, very early stages, but he has tweeted, Arsenal put Eberechi Eze high among options to bolster attack. No contact with Palace yet, unclear if it needs an exit, but serious candidate, as in Eze's serious candidate, and it's separate to the striker and winger. Arsenal would look to pay below the release clause. Tottenham not pursuing for now. I've got some, look, I'm not going to lie, I'm excited and I've got some really good thoughts around this, well, as in positive thoughts. I'm not saying my thoughts are golden, but Goonerverse tweeted, the likes of Eberechi Eze, Noni Madueke, Morgan, Rogers are all of interest to Arsenal as they weigh up what else may be achievable in the market beyond a 9. Arsenal are exploring a number of deals. Sales could be a factor in what develops. A little bit more on what David Ornstein said, which was aggregated by AFC Stuff from his report on The Athletic. So that Arsenal will be looking to do a deal for Eberechi Eze at a lower price than his release clause. It is unclear whether a sale would need to happen first to facilitate a move, but this would be separate to their pursuit of a striker and left winger. I feel so positive about this report. Now, at the very beginning of this video, I said, don't you love it when a take ages well? And you'll hear me talk about it on the podcast with Ben Mattinson that's out later today. But I'd said in the Goonerverse 2 video, and by the way, the reason I'm going to pat myself on the back for this one is because there's a lot of stuff you get wrong. Like there just is. There's a lot of takes, there's a lot of kind of, opinions and thoughts and predictions you put out there that you get wrong throughout the year. But sometimes something just feels like it fits. And when it comes out that that's exactly how the club are looking at it, listen, I don't really care whether I got it right or wrong. What I care about is that Arsenal are thinking about it in the same way as so many fans. A little spoiler on the podcast with Ben is I asked him what he made of Eze as a third attacker, not as the starting left winger potentially coming in. And he said, well, he thinks we need 3 forwards anyway. And I'm so glad that others are seeing that when it seems like the club do too. Now, crucially, we shouldn't forget what Mikel Arteta said in the summer, or going into the summer. He said in a press conference about needing goals, efficiency, whatever, he mentioned the word creativity. That is not a word I've heard him use that often. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty convinced he doesn't use that word that often. So it's really interesting that the Eze links have emerged, as Ornstein says, as a serious candidate separate to a striker and a winger. There's a few things that we should be excited about here. Firstly, that Arsenal are looking to do a 10, a left winger and a striker all in one window. That is brilliant. When we're talking about unprecedented summers, that, by Arsenal's terms, by Arsenal's history, feels somewhat unprecedented. I'm not saying we're signing the Galacticos and doing a madness, but that is definitely a step beyond what I expected of Arsenal and what they've done over the years. I think to consider is when Ornstein and The Athletic get hold of something, they come forward with something, that means there's something really in it. So high amongst options to bolster attack. It's unclear if it needs an exit. It's probably a good thing to hear that it definitely doesn't need, but we'll talk about that in a sec. And then he's a serious candidate. This tells me that Arsenal, amongst all the talks that happened over the weekend, this tells me that Arsenal are genuinely looking at this. Now, my theory on kind of where he ranked as a backup to Rodrigo, as an opportunity or whatever, my theory was that actually Rodrigo will be the opportunity. Rodrigo will be the player that if he becomes available, if it comes up later in the window, I think he's the player that Arsenal might go, yeah, you know what, for you, we will find £80 million. We will find, sounds crazy to say it, doesn't it? We will find a way to do that deal. And if there's interest in Martinelli and Trossard, why the Trossard talk's taking so long, that's gone a bit quiet. Martinelli's been linked with Bayern Munich, a few clubs, and Saudi clubs as well. It makes me wonder whether that's the sale that might bolster the chances of that might facilitate the signing of a really high-profile left winger. But I actually think when you've got a player like Eze who can play on the left anyway, and Arsenal will be looking to have Ødegaard, Zubimendi, Rice as their starting midfield three, you'd imagine, and you're talking about Martinelli and Trossard as things stand not going anywhere, I actually see a world in which Eze is signed regardless, and Rodrigo is brought in case that opportunity comes up. Am I making sense? Guys, I'm smiling. This is the first time in the window I've genuinely been excited. Really. This is the first time in the window I've genuinely thought, okay, like, you know, Arsenal might really be looking to do something serious here. If Arsenal sign Kepa, Mosquera, Zubimendi, Norgard, Eze, and one of Sesco Gyökeres, there is absolutely no question we've improved. Absolutely no question we have improved and added some quality players. From Zubimendi to Eze, to whichever forward we add, whether it's Gyökeres for now or Sesco for the future, we've added real quality. And then you've got Mosquera and Kepa as backups. And they are really dependable quality backups. But if it's a Kivior and Zinchenko leaving, means we get a Joao Hato too. And if it's a Martinelli or Trossard leaving, means we get a Rodrigo too. I couldn't have asked for more. I could not have asked for more. And people might have questions about the striker, but I think there'd be so much attacking quality there that having a striker that purely facilitates everything we're trying to do as well, when you've got match-winning quality in Saka, in Ødegaard at his best, but we haven't seen it in a while, in Eze, in Rodrigo, in Trossard when he's at his best, in Martinelli if he finds form, then that does ease the pressure on the striker. And it does make me think, well, we don't need the out-and-out 30-goal-a-season striker then, but we need an upgrade there, we need real quality, and we need someone who is going to blend with everything we've just added to this team. And then it starts to make a lot more sense for me. So, like I said, for the first time, I'm really excited about this window. Now, the only thing here is that Arsenal will look to pay below the release clause. The release clause isn't crazy, 67 million. Without that, I think they're asking for 80. So I think it's really important that Arsenal don't take the piss here. But I guess when there's a release clause, I suppose Arsenal are entitled to take the piss because ultimately you match the release clause and the deal's done. But Palace have reportedly been open to doing this in installments. 20 across 3 separate summers with the add-ons of around 7-8 million. Do you risk jeopardising that deal if you come in going, look, we want to do the deal at 50 million? And they'll go, well, no. Because why would they? I mean, why would they wanted 80 million for Gehi not recently, not long ago, and Eze's their best player. So I think this is one that, look, it's picking up pace. From Thursday, Alex Crook and Ben Jacobs dropped the news. Yesterday, we had Fabrizio Romano confirming that there were talks over the weekend. Others came in with that, like Ben Jacobs, Alex Crook, and then Hand of Arsenal said that Arteta was personally involved in those explorative talks. And now we're hearing that Eze is high on the list. And why would Ornstein come in with that? It's because there's some real encouragement that something might happen here. So to sum up my prediction that has aged well from yesterday, that I believe in even more now, Arsenal weren't looking at Eze to be the left winger signing. They were looking at him as an opportunity who, with a particular deal that could be done and the absolute immense quality he'd bring to this team, they saw him as a player who could play on the left and upgrade that position if needed. And if that's all we could do in that position, then brilliant. But could help in midfield, could help in central space, it could maybe play false nine, could do a lot of things. As a left 8, as cover for Ødegaard on the right 8, can do lots of different things. And ultimately, Rodrigo, I think, is seen as a totally separate deal. There's almost like a Rodrigo savings pot. If that becomes available, Arsenal and the Cronkies will sanction that. But Eze is part of something else here, is part of the bigger plan to add someone like a Morgan Rogers too, who's been talked about, who can play, yes, on the left, yes, improve us on the left, but ultimately contribute in central midfield too, and give us something really different there that we don't have. I'm so encouraged by this, people. So glad David Ornstein has said this. No, we haven't signed him. But first and foremost, let's not credit the club. They haven't done anything yet. But if this really is the way they're thinking, this is genuinely, wholeheartedly how they're trying to approach the situation, I'm very happy. First thing I want is intent. I've complained about us not being linked to Florian Wirtz and others. I've actually complained and said, but why are we not even in the conversation for that? So when we are in the conversation to this kind of business, I'm not going to complain about it. Now then, if we don't, then I'll wonder why and hope, we'll know more about that near the time. But they're trying to do the right things. Let's see if they pull it off now. It's the 1st of July. There's still a lot of this window to go, but things are really picking up now. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below, people. That was a good update from David Ornstein. I think more significant than the Romano one of yesterday. He always comes in with something a bit extra, David. And him saying he's a serious candidate and he's separate to the striker and winger, mwah, chef's kiss. I love that. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Catch you in a bit.